أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربي هب لي حكما وألحقني بالصالحين ربي هب لي حكما وألحقني بالصالحين ربنا أتمم لنا نورنا واغفر لنا إنك على كل شيء قدير رب ابني لي عندك بيتا في الجنة لا إله إلا الله أستغفر الله أسألك الجنة وأعوذ بك من النار لا إله إلا الله أستغفر الله أسألك الجنة وأعوذ بك من النار لا إله إلا الله أستغفر الله أسألك الجنة وأعوذ بك من النار اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عني اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عني اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عني رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي آمين يا أرحم الراحمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Alhamdulillah, by the grace and tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Today we are going to talk about ayah number 55 to 58 of Surah Al Imran. And we will start with the recitation and the word by word meanings. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
إذ قال الله يا عيسى إني متوفيك ورافعك إلي ومطهرك من الذين كفروا وجاعل الذين اتبعوك فوق الذين كفروا إلى يوم القيامة ثم إلي مرجعكم فأحكم بينكم فيما كنتم فيه تختلفون.
Is when, so it's used in the sense of when we use is, it is when in the sense of the past tense, like remember when this happened. So is qala said, and who said? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said Ya Isa, he's addressing Isa alayhi salam, Jesus, he's addressing him and saying Ya Isa, O Isa, inni, indeed I, inni, and the ya at the end is for I. Indeed I, definitely I, certainly there is no doubt that I, mutawaffika, that I will take you completely, warafi'uka, and I will raise you, ilayya, to myself, wa mutahhiruka, and I will, from tahara, like to purify, mutahhiruka, that I will purify you, min alladhina, from those who, mina, from alladhina, those who, kafaru, disbelieved, wa ja'ilu, ja'ala, to make something, wa ja'ilu, and I will make, alladhina, those who, ittaba'uka, those who follow you. Taba'a, ittiba is to follow somebody foot step by footstep, like somebody's walked and we can imagine there are footsteps on the sand and somebody's walked, and then we walk trying to make sure that our feet fall on their footsteps. So we're literally following their footsteps like that, like children do sometimes, right? So وَجَعِلُكَ الَّذِينَ اتَّبَعُوكَ, and I will make those who follow you, or those who followed you, فَوْقَ, above or superior, الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, to those who disbelieved, إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ, until the day of judgment. ثُمَّ, then, إِلَيَّ, to me, مَرْجِعُكُمْ, raja'a, to return, marji'ukum is your return, kum, all of you, marji'ukum is your return, fa'ahkum, then I will judge, bainakum, between all of you, fima, about what, kuntum, you were, fihi, in it, takhtalifun. Ikhtilaf is a difference. So mukhtalifun, about which you were differing, things that you were differing about. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling Isa, he's making some promises to Isa alayhi salam, and we will learn about those promises. When Allah said, O Isa, indeed I will take you and I will raise you to myself, and I'll purify you from those who disbelieved, and I will make you make those who follow you superior to those who disbelieved until the day of judgment. Then to me is your return, the final return, فَأَحْكُمُ بَيْنَكُمْ, and then I will judge between you about what you were all differing in, and then I will judge between all of you regarding that. Then ayah number
فأما الذين كفروا فأعذبهم عذابا شديدا في الدنيا والآخرة وما لهم من ناصرين.
So in the previous ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that I shall judge between you in that over which you differed. And in the next two ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us what the judgment will be. Right? So the judgment will be then فَأَمَّا, then as for الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, those who disbelieved, فَأُعَذِّبُهُمْ, then أُعَذِّبُ, I will punish whom, them. Then I will punish them adhaban, with a punishment shadidan, severe, fi dunya wal akhirah, fi, in dunya, the world, like this world, the earth, wal akhirati, and the hereafter. Akhirah is the hereafter, the final stage of our life. Wama lahum, and not for them, sorry, the final as in the hereafter, referring to after the life after, the next life. Wama, and not lahum, for them, min nasirin, is there of any. Nasirin, nasara is to help, and they will have no helpers. So for them, there are no helpers. So, and for those, as for those who disbelieved, I will punish them with a severe punishment in this world and the hereafter, and they will have no helpers. And then in the next ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us,
وأما الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات فيوفيهم أجورهم والله لا يحب الظالمين.
وَأَمَّا, and as for الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, those who believed, وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, amal is an intentional deed, like intentional action. Like fi'al is used for action as well, but amal is a fi'al could be an action that we're doing involuntary as well. Like I could be I'm breathing, and when I'm not conscious, I'm still breathing. So it's a involuntary, but it is still classified as a fi'al, whether I'm deep breathing or whether I'm breathing normally without thinking about it. Whereas amal is an intentional deed that we actually put our intention and do it. Right? So amilus salihat, and they did deeds which are salih, which are good, which are righteous. For yuwaffihim, and he will grant them in full ujurahum, from ajr, right? So ajr is the reward of something. Ujur is the plural. So their rewards, like all their rewards or whatever they used to do. Wallahu, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, la yuhibbu, he does not love. Hub is love. He does la yuhib, he does not love. Like la means not. Like even in the Shahada we say la ilaha illallah. There is no God except Allah. Right? Wallahu la yuhibbu dhalimin, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not love. Whom does he not love? Al-Dhalimeen, those who do dhulm, those who are the wrongdoers. So here then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us the fate of other people. But as for those who believe and did righteous deed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them in full their rewards. Like not even a atom's worth will be left. They will get their rewards in full. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like the wrongdoers. And the next ayah, number 58.
ذلك نتلوه عليك من الآيات والذكر الحكيم.
Dhalika, that, natluhu. Natluhu from like the same root as tilawat. Like when we do tilawat is one part following the other. We do the tilawat of the Quran, it meaning the recitation of the Quran. We are reciting one verse and then one verse, and we are saying it, right? So we're reciting it. So dhalika natluhu, that is what we recited, alayka, to you, minal ayati, of the ayat, of the verses, wadhikri, and the reminder, al hakim, the wise. So here the Prophet ﷺ is being addressed in the middle of after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling him about Isa alayhi salam, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing the Prophet ﷺ and saying that these incidents that we are telling you about Isa alayhi salam, and so right in the middle, Allah subhanahu, it's like when you're narrating a story and then you turn your attention to the person that you're talking to, right? First you're telling the story, so it's like it's a beautiful transition, and like some people have studied these transitions in a lot of detail in the Quran as well, and there's so much beauty even in them. Inshallah, we learn more about it one day. May Allah open those doors for us as well. So these are the news, meaning the story about Isa alayhi salam that we are telling you, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and by extension all of us. That is what we recite to you from the ayat, and these ayat, that what we are learning about is the dhikr, the reminder, and the wise. This Quran, the verses are the reminder which are wise. So this is what we recite you, Muhammad, of our verses and the precise and wise message. So inshallah, we'll talk in a bit more detail now. So ayah number 55. Um, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us about, so before this we learned about the story of Maryam, salamun alayha, we learned about the story of Zakaria. So we're learning about the family of Imran, who was the father of Maryam, salamun alayha. So Imran alayhi salam was a prophet of Allah as well, and he was the father of Maryam, but he passed away before she was born. And then we learned about the birth of Isa alayhi salam and how that was miraculous and everything. And then Allah Ta'ala promised Maryam that this son of yours, we will educate him and we will take care of him. And Isa alayhi salam grew up as a young man. We learned that he was talking to, like he was very impressive. He was like, like he was talking, he would debate with the rabbis of that time. He would tell them, he would point out the mistakes, and he was very, very not. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him this knowledge, and like he was a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Chose him, and then Allah gave him um, all these gifts as miracles as well, and everything, right? And then obviously as the gifts started to increase, that we learned that as the popularity started to increase, and that's what happens even in today's time, when we see when popularity starts to increase, when people start to get noticed and they are on the right path, then people who are not on the right path, they start to get nervous about them. They start to, that's why we are told, one of the hikmah, one of the wisdom is to, when we are on the right path, and when we are trying to do things which are might be unpleasant to some people, because they are, some people are doing wrong, and then and we are saying or doing something which is against that, because we're standing up for the truth, then unless needed, we should try to keep a lower profile, right? Because we shouldn't put ourselves in a harm's way as much as possible. But then, of course, there comes a time when it is unavoidable, and when it is unavoidable, then of course, like our religion teaches us, then when there is a situation, then we are there. Then of course then we stand up, and we with courage and everything. But as we don't like. Like we don't try to put ourselves in a situation of war, in a situation of conflict. We try to keep away from it as much as possible. When it is unavoidable, then we stand up for it, and then we are brave in that phase as well, right? But we don't wish for it, and we don't crave for that kind of situation, right? But now with Isa alayhi salam, we learned that what was happening was that now there is political conspiracies, and this people of Bani Israel, the people of the Jewish community of that time. Again, we don't take a broad big paint and like brush all communities and all Jews like that we ever meet with the same thing, because we are talking about a very Quran's very specific to the context. And some people, when they take it out of context, then they um, like then we become unjust to people around us as well. So it's like those people of that time, of the time of Isa alayhi salam, we're talking about the people of of Bani Israel, who were the religious leaders of that time of Bani Israel. And there was a lot of religious corruption there. There was so much corruption and everything, that they would change things, and they would do things for a lot of benefit. And of course, when another person is pointing out their mistakes, and they're not they have a chance to change themselves, but then also we know that a lot of people don't take that chance, right? So there were a lot of conspiracies happening against Isa alayhi salam, and he could feel it. He would know about it, and we know that like even we can sense in today's day and time when people are doing things against us, and then also he would get to know from people, right, that what is going on and everything. So in this time when there's a lot of tension going on, a lot of conspiracies against him. People are trying to even kill him, and like create some political conspiracies, and some like false accusations, and get him to be killed and all that stuff. At this time, in the middle of all this tension, in the middle of all this all the stress that's going on and everything, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses Isa alayhi salam directly, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "O Isa, Ya Isa," right? So first of all, just to think that how much Isa alayhi salam, Jesus, would have felt at peace, and how much consolation he would have felt when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called him himself, right? So first thing, sometimes like we just look at the text and we're like, Yeah, oh, yeah, okay. Allah said, yeah, Isa, and this. But then just to pause here and see that when somebody is in a troubled state, when we are in a on the truth, and we are in a troubled state, and there are people who are doing things around us which are which could be heartbreaking sometimes, which could be very upsetting, which could be stressful. You could be worried about your own about like what people are going to do, whether they're conspiring against us financially or socially or emotionally, or like like even physically people are conspiring. It can be very, very stressful. But then just to know that Allah is with you gives us the kind of peace that and Allah shows us signs in different ways. Like the prophets of Allah, He addressed them directly, but Allah gives each one of us our own signs that we know. He tells us when we are on the truth that He is with us, and that is the most precious thing to a believer. That is something that like it is so precious that it just like calms your heart in a way that everything around could be the same, but then your heart feels that calm, and that only those who experience that this can understand what that calmness is when when we connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so at this time, in between all this sadness and trouble and everything, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not leaving him alone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there with him, right? And and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not leave Isa alayhi salam, just like He did not leave other prophets, like Yusuf alayhi salam, when his brothers had, or Joseph, when his brothers had thrown him into the well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not leave him alone, even though in worldly sense he was all alone. Yunus alayhi salam, when he was in the stomach of the whale, or Jonas, when he was in the stomach of the whale and he was calling out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not leave him alone. When the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when he was in the cave all alone, and the Quraysh were trying to kill him, and they were like looking for him, and they had put like a reward on anybody who finds him and everything, even then, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not leave any of them alone. And similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not leave any of us alone. When we believe in Him, and when we are, when we stand up for Him, and we try to submit to Him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not leave us alone, no matter what happens and no matter how strong our opposition is. When Allah is with us, then He takes care of us. It also describes that the here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ayah is going to tell us the secret plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect and safeguard Isa alayhi salam, because there was these schemes being made, and by the political opponents, by the Jews by the rabbis of that time and everything. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us about His plan that is going to frustrate all of their efforts, and it will also bring forward, it will open up, it will show, it will unravel their conspiracies that they were making, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to show us that. And then He tells us that what He's going to do, and He's giving some promises to Isa alayhi salam. And the first thing He's saying is, Inni mutawaffika, that I will take you, right? And mutawaffika comes from wafa'iya, right? Tawaffi in Arabic, it originally means to receive something in full, right? So like to recall something back in its entirety, completely, right? So means to take something fully and to seize, like take it, all of it, not leaving anything, right? And uh, so some supposed meaning sometimes, so this word is sometimes also used metaphorically for death, right? But not in a literal sense. In a literal sense, it means to take completely, right? So here, although this word can be used for death, but here it is not, it does not mean death, but it means seizing along with the body, like body and soul, right? And so such words, and sometimes that happens in the language, that sometimes such words can be used in either sense, metaphorically or literally, right? And it depends on the contextual evidence, what is going on and everything. And and this is another thing that we need to understand, that even in English language, for example, some words could mean different things in different contexts. Like, for example, if I say the word monitor, I could mean the monitor of a class, a person who's a monitor, and the teacher appoints, okay, you're the monitor of the class when I'm going away, and you have to take care of everything. We could also refer to monitor as the monitor of a computer. They're two totally different things, but it's the same word that we use, right? Or if you look at the word stable, so there's a stable in which the horses are kept, the horse is stable. Or we can also say the condition of a medical patient is stable, right? So again, there are two different words with totally different meanings, but then It's the same word and the same spelling even, right? And to understand the languages of this world, we use dictionaries to understand, right? Similarly, to understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's word, that is the Quran, we need a dictionary as well. But the dictionary to understand the Quran is the hadith, right? So there could be thousands of meanings of the word in the dictionary of language, like our Arabic language as well. But we will take the meaning that has come in the hadith. So we will take one example. For example, the word salah means prayer. It literally means just prayer. But if we just use the dictionary of people and not hadith, then you could take it to mean just the dua, right? So like, and some people have taken that, astaghfirullah, may Allah protect us. Some people say, okay, you don't need to pray 5 times a day. Where does it say to pray 5 times a day in the Quran? It just says salah. So you just sit and make dua whenever you make dua, and that's fine. You don't need to pray, astaghfirullah, right? So, but then if we go over the hadith tells us very clearly, the Prophet ﷺ taught us clearly that you have to pray 5 times a day, and this is how you pray, and this is there is a specific way to pray, and there are specific phrases to say, and there is a specific you cannot like change it on your own whims and fancies that I today I feel like just sitting and making do I don't feel like standing up. So and like I'm totally fine, but I just don't feel like standing up, so today I'll just like not stand up, and I won't say all of this, I'll just say this dhikr, and that's fine. But yeah, that is good if you make that dhikr, but that will not replace the salah. Why? Because even though the Quran does not tell us the way of salah, the Prophet ﷺ taught us that, right? So we look at the Quran, and we use dictionaries as well to understand. We learn Arabic language and we use dictionaries. But when the hadith explains something, we use how the Prophet ﷺ has explained that. And we use the hadith meaning only at that time, right? So the Prophet ﷺ has explained to us, and then again, there will be other evidences too that will uh, that will kind of like build up on that, right? So there's a lot of contextual evidence that builds up on that. So the supposed meaning that some people have taken here for this is that he was killed or he died, right? But astaghfirullah, here the word tawaffa does not mean death, but it means seizing along with the body, taking along with the body, right? And that is why if you look at today's time, so a lot of people, they believe, the Jews as well as the Christian community, what they believe is that Isa alayhi salam was killed and he died and everything. And that's why if we look at how even in today's day and age, how we mention time, how do we measure time, like what year it is we say this much, it is 2023 AD, and this was the time BC, like before Christ and after death. Like AD is refers to after death, right? So this is it's 2022 AD, 2023 AD, and it will be 2024 AD after next year, right? So that's why time is mentioned as BC and AD. Although as Muslims, we do not believe that. We do not believe that Isa alayhi salam was killed or he died. When a person dies, the body stays here. What happens when a person dies? The body stays at where it is, and the soul goes. Whereas Isa alayhi salam, what happened with him was he was raised whole, both body and soul. And Ibn Abi Hatim recorded that Al-Hasan said that Allah's statements, Inni mutawaffika, is in reference to sleep. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised Isa alayhi salam while he was asleep. Right? And and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Warafiqa. He explains it further. Warafika ilayya. And I will raise you to myself. So it's the promise being made to Isa alayhi salam that I will take you in full, body and soul, and I'll raise you to myself, right? Meaning like he's going to raise him soon, and then to save him from these people and everything. But then nearing to the day of judgment, after the coming of the Prophet ﷺ and the going of Prophet ﷺ, nearing to the day of judgment, Isa ﷺ will come back again, and then he will die a natural death too. That will happen. Then he will die a natural death, which he tells later on in the ayah, Thumma ilayya marji'ukum. Then like there will be a final return for Isa alayhi salam as well. But this is not it. Like these people would not be able to kill Isa alayhi salam, and they did not kill, they did not crucify Isa alayhi salam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lifted him to the heavens. He lifted him, both body and soul, to the heavens. Right? And so meaning lifting up physically. When the word ilayya comes after rafiqa, it means lifting up physically. And then another promise that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives, then wa mutahhiruka min alladhina kafaru, and then I will purify you from those who disbelieve. Meaning those who disbelieve, meaning those who were planning to, those who were intending to kill him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will raise, and this also means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will raise you up to himself, raise him up to himself with great honor and esteem, and he will purify him. He will remove Isa alayhi salam from this dirty environment of the disbelievers, and who are engaged in a lot of sins and crimes and things, and conspiring against him, and doing all these schemes and things, and he will admit him into the celestial beings, into the beings who do the hamd of Allah all the time. And to a believer, that is the most beautiful company to be in, when people are remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when the beings around him are engaged in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, rather than being engaged in sins and harming people and cheating people and doing all sorts of those things, right? So that when a believer is around people, even if he or she is not engaged in this, when we are around people who are doing the wrong things, then it disturbs us from the inside, and that disturbance is natural. It is natural to feel disturbed. It is natural to feel that thing, because because we want purity, we want cleanness, we want good for ourselves and people. We don't want anybody to cheat anybody, right? But then, of course, this dunya is dunya, and the perfect peace and the perfect good will only be experienced in Jannah. May Allah Ta'ala make us of those people. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and then the next promise he says is, وَجَعِلُ الَّذِينَ اتَّبَعُوكَ فَوْقَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ. That I will make those who follow you superior to those who disbelieved, until the day of judgment. So if we look at that he's what that means is, he's going to make those who follow him, meaning the Christians and Muslims too, with belief, that those and they will be above the disbelievers, above the Bani Israel who disbelieve, those people among them who disbelieve, until the day of judgment. And so basically, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that Christians will always, in a way, be dominant over the Jews. And it's a historical reality that Christians as a nation have always been superior, like stronger and more superior than the Jews. And for a limited period of time, yes, the Jewish community will, as a community, we're talking as a community, not as individuals, as a community, they will get some power or some hold over the world finances and economy and power and things like that, like nowadays, for example. But the back of it, like who's supporting that, they're not standing on it by themselves. They're standing on that by the support from the Christians only, right? So if that support is taken away, then they don't have much to stand on, right? So even politically, if we study the political history and everything, we'll find that, right? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that finally all of you have to come towards me, like everybody has to return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will judge between everybody, all of you people, about what you were differing, about what you had different opinions. So, for example, about Isa alayhi salam, there are so many different opinions. If we look at historically, about, first of all, about his birth, like it is a miraculous birth. Alhamdulillah, we believe it's a miraculous birth, and we believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says kun, and things happen. So he said kun, and Isa alayhi salam was born without the need of a father. But there were people who pointed fingers at Maryam salam alaiha, and said things about her that shouldn't have been said. Then there is also difference of opinion about crucifixion or not, whether he was crucified, whether he was not crucified, whether he was taken up or whether he was not. Then there is the whole concept of Trinity. There is a lot of opinions and counter opinions about that. Then astaghfirullah, there's this opinion about him being the son of God, astaghfirullah, and things like that as well, right? So there's all these different opinions, right? And meaning, in the terms of this dunya, the Christians um, might be above the status in Jews, right? But in terms of akhirah, right, it doesn't mean that the aqidah of the Christians is also correct, because in the akhirah, and as we see today, right? Again, Christians have a lot of sects. We don't again we don't know which one. Maybe somebody is believing in the right thing, but what we believe is whoever comes with the right aqidah, right? it doesn't mean their Aqidah is correct. Although in this dunya, they will be getting a higher status. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them a higher status and made them more powerful than the Jewish community, right? And also, because there are so many different opinions, and some people say, like, how can a body and soul be lifted up? Like, it's just the soul goes up. But then just to understand that Rabb, the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the God who takes after death, he takes our ruh out, but the body stays here. The one who can take our ruh can also take both the body and soul when he wants. Who's there to stop him, right? So if you look at it, what are the five promises that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made to Isa alayhi salam in this? The five promises that he made was, the first one is that you will not die at the hand of the Jews who are planning to kill you and conspiring to kill you. They will not be successful. You will die a natural death, which will happen much later in the history of mankind, when you will when he will come down, right? And that was going to happen. Second promise is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will call him to the heavens, take him to the heavens, to himself. Third is that I will, like, I will purify you from even the 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 um, the claims that the enemies of Isa alayhi salam made upon him, the charges that they put on him, the allegations that they put on him. And these allegations, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised that he will clear those allegations. And they were cleared. And even if today we see that they were cleared, especially like, even if you look at it, they have been cleared through the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Islam and the Quran. Quran clears it. He was, Isa alayhi salam, Maryam salam alayhi, was a pure, pious, modest lady, right? She was one of the best women in the world, and she did not engage in zina. There was Isa alayhi salam was not the like he was born by a miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right. So, and this has been clear in the Quran and through the Hadith again, a lot of Hadith as well, right? And the fourth promise was that your followers will be given, like your followers, the followers of Isa alayhi salam, will be given power, will be given more success, will be, they'll be above those who disbelieve. And when people follow his teachings, then they get a higher status. But when people go away from the original teachings, then that's when they get maghloob. And the same things with the Muslims as well. When Muslims follow the teachings of Islam and Muslims follow the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises their status. But when we start to, like, not follow the teachings, do things contrary, we say we are Muslims, but we do things which are against Islam, and that's when we get weaker and weaker and weaker, and then, like, as a community, as a whole, we get weaker. And the fifth promise that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made is that on the day of Qiyamah, on the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will judge between all these religious differences that we see all around and everything. So one thing is that why is the mention of Isa alayhi salam in so much detail in the Quran, right? Like we learn everything, like everything's like miraculous that we learned about him, the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We learn so much about his family. We learn so much about his birth, his life, his being raised, his death, even, like so much more than many other prophets in the Quran. We learn so much more about him. And why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaching us so much about him, right? Because first of all, we need to understand, because he is going to come back at a time when there will be a lot of fitna, right? Isa alayhi salam is going to come back at a time when there will be a lot of fitna, and in between so much fitna, so that the believers will be able to recognize him clearly. When we know so much about somebody, then we are able to recognize them. Then we are able to, like, yes, he is the one. And yes, these are the kind of qualities Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that he has. And this is what he has. He was kind, he was compassionate, he would heal people, he was just, he was he was a brilliant speaker. And so there were a lot of qualities and a lot of things about him that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us. Also, we know that Isa alayhi salam is going to face, when he comes back, he's going to face the big fitna of the Dajjal, the Antichrist, and Muslims would be able to recognize Isa alayhi salam. Right? And also, if at that time anybody makes a claim to be Isa alayhi salam, like the Antichrist, the Dajjal will make the claim to be Isa alayhi salam, then people can recognize, the believers can recognize that this is not true, that this one is not Isa alayhi salam, right? And we can recognize that. And this is one of the beautiful things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does for us, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives advice to the believers, tells the believers or teaches the believers before that the before the situations become worse, before the things become really, really bad, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us beforehand. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us beforehand that before some fitna is going to come, before something really hard is going to come, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prepares us for it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala advises us about it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings us together for it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings the believers together, right? When we are, when we are supposed to be together, when we need to be together, before that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings us together, right? And even the hadith tells us that how will Isa alayhi salam come down? Isa alayhi salam will come down in Damascus. We know that he will come down in Damascus at a time when Imam Mahdi would be leading the salah. He would be leading the salah, and Isa alayhi salam would come back, and we know so much detail, up to the detail, that there'll be water dripping from his, like, from his hair and everything. There'll be some water dripping and everything, right? So, and that time he will come back, and when he comes back, when Isa alayhi salam comes back, he will have a life here, and he will live here, for some years, and then he will marry, and he will have a family. He will live until the age of around 45, and then he'll die a natural death. And after he dies a natural death, we also know from hadith that he will get buried next to the Prophet ﷺ in Medina. Right? There is one spot we know that, like right now, who are buried together? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and next to him there is Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, and there is Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu, and there is one spot which is left. And the Prophet sallallahu told us that that one spot will belong to Isa alayhi salam when he'll come back and he'll have a natural death. And what will he do in his life when he comes back? He will do Hajj and Umrah as well, and he will kill the Dajjal. Like he will kill the Antichrist, who would be the biggest fitna that we face. It will be the time then everybody's iman would be challenged. It will be a time then it would be so easy to leave iman and to go, because he will have the wealth, he will have everything. So it will be on, and the believers will be learn in other traditions, that other narrations, that the believers will have to flee to the mountains to protect their iman, because like it would be so hard to protect your iman at that time. And who will get rid? Nobody will be able to face the child. Nobody will be able to get rid of him. Nobody will be able to do anything except Isa alayhi salam. So Isa alayhi salam will be the one who would get rid of him, and nobody else would be able to confront and get rid of the Dajjal, right? And there are so many hadith about Isa alayhi salam that we learn so much about him, right? And even at other places in the Quran, like for example, Surah Nisa, the fourth surah of the Quran, the next surah after Surah Al Imran, in ayah number 157 and 158, we learn Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, but about Isa alayhi salam, but they killed him not, nor crucified him, but so it was made to appear to them. And those who differ therein are full of doubts, with no certain knowledge, but only conjecture to follow. For of a surety they killed him not. Nay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised him up unto himself, and Allah is exalted in power and wise. And so when we see the stories of the prophets, there has been a divine law concerning prophets that has always been that the prophets come to the people who have been doing wrong, the people who have been doing, they've been doing zulm, they have been cheating people, they have been oppressing people, they have been not giving the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're engaged in shirk, they're engaged in a lot of corruption, a lot of things like that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends people to warn them, had sent prophets to warn them, right? And the prophets, when they come, they stay among the people they are sent to, and they keep reminding them, keep warning them, keep telling them to come back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, leave this practice, leave what you're doing, this is not fair, this is not good, this is dhulm, leave this and come. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lets the prophets stay among these people. As hard as it is for the prophets, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lets the prophets stay amongst these people until there is hope that they might respond and believe, right? Until there is hope that these people might change their ways, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lets the prophets stay there, right? But when does this hope end? This hope ends when these people, for whose benefit Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent the prophets to give them a final warning and everything, this hope about them coming back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ends when these same people resolve upon assassinating the prophet, about killing the prophet that was sent to them. When they start conspiring, they go to that limit First, they make fun of the prophet. First they ignore him. This is not a big deal. Second, when they see that this thing's gaining power, then they try to ridicule him. They try to make fun of him. They try to put false charges against him. They try to, like, break his spirit in different ways. They try to harass him in different ways and everything. When that doesn't work, then they start conspiring against him. Like, how can they get rid of him? How can they? And then they reach until a stage that they are ready to even kill him, right? Because they just can't stand this. At this time, when they reach that stage, at this time, with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the permission, and the Prophet emigrates from there and leaves them. At this point, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes them, because now there's no hope left. The hope for them is finished. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lets the Prophet stay, not because to, like, to let the Prophet experience pain or whatever, but to give hope to these other people. But that hope has ended now, and that's when the Prophet immigrates. And just like when a soul leaves a body, like our body, we are made up of both body and soul. But when a soul leaves our body, a person is declared dead, and the body then starts, very quickly, the body starts undergoing decay and decomposition. Right? Similarly, when a prophet leaves a certain place, so when a prophet or the person who's going to remind them of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala leaves that place, immigrates from that place, now the deniers of the prophets after that, like now that he's left, now they suffer humiliation and defeat after his departure. While the prophet and his companions who have left the evil behind, what happens? They leave the corrupt society, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala moves them to a new place where they build a new, healthy, wholesome environment that strengthens them morally and spiritually, right? And if you look at Isa, and for other prophets, we see that Nuh alayhi salam and Hud alayhi salam and Lut alayhi salam, we see all these stories of the prophet, even the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that he had to immigrate from Makkah to Medina. And when they had gone to the extent of they wanted to kill him now, right? And then after that, we know that the Battle of Badr happened, and they were humiliated and they were killed and stuff like that. And other times, for other prophets, the punishment of Allah came in different ways. So raising of Isa alayhi salam to heavens, the birth of Isa alayhi salam was different, and the hijrah of Isa alayhi salam was different as well. His hijrah was not from one place to another place on the earth. His hijrah, his immigration was to the heavens, right? And also, we learned regarding the prophets that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Mujadila, which is the 58th surah in the 21st ayah, that it is I and my messengers who must prevail. So another distinctive characteristic of the Rasul, of all the Rasuls of Allah, of the Rasul of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not allow their enemies to kill them. Right? No matter how much they try, no matter how much they plot, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lets them plot, lets them put all their effort and this and that and everything, but Allah has his own plan. Like here we know that they were conspiring, they had made in their minds, they had made a foolproof plan. They're going to get rid of him, they're going to kill him. They had put all these false charges. He wants to overthrow the person. He's telling people, like he's going around telling people not to pay taxes and things like that. So they have made all this case against him, all lies. They have built up all these lies against him to kind of have political force, trying to get rid of Isa alayhi salam as well. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to let all these plans, he's going to let them make these plans until the last moment. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to pick up his prophets. He picks out his prophets and does not let the people kill any of his Rasul. Why? Because Rasul, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends the Rasul with a message, right? And so they have a certain status, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not let people kill him. They will die the natural death, right? That does not allow their enemies to kill him. As opposed to the Nabi, right? So there's a difference. There's similar, the two words are used in similar connotations sometimes. Both are used for the prophets, the Nabi or the Anbiya. The plural is Anbiya, the singular is Nabi. And the Rasul, which is the messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, also used for the prophet. Like we say Rasulullah, we say Nabi Allah as well, Nabi of Allah as well, right? But sometimes the Nabi of Allah, the people who were Nabis of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the prophets, in English translation, for both we will see prophets, right? But in Arabic, there's a slight difference between. They can be used interchangeably sometimes, but Rasul is more specific. Like every Rasul is also a Nabi, but not every Nabi is a Rasul. Right? So the Nabi, sometimes Nabi and pious people, pious believers, they have been killed by other people in the history of mankind. It has happened, but no Rasul was ever killed, including Isa alayhi salam. He was never killed by anybody. And we know that he was raised up, and then he will, inshallah, when he comes back, then he will marry, he will have a family, and then he will also die a natural death at that time, right? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that He will make this judgment of about these people on the day of judgment. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about those the judgment that He will make. So He tells us, as for those who disbelieve, meaning the people who were planning and plotting to kill Isa alayhi salam, they have been called disbelievers. They have been called kafir, right? I shall punish them a severe punishment in this world and in the hereafter, and for them there are no helpers, right? So there's a threat of punishment both in this world and the next, right? And as we see even in the history, like after this, those people who conspired, who plotted, who tried to kill Isa alayhi salam, they were never established fully after that. Like whenever they would start to get established, and then something else would happen. And like even in recent history, we see the Holocaust, and we see the Germans attack them, and something else happened, and something else happened. And even now, the temporary establishment that they have at the moment, in today's day and age, is also, like a lot of scholars say, is a sign of day of judgment being near, because they will be on the side of the Dajjal, they will be on the side of Antichrist, and there will be these two groups which are going to, like, and they'll get more and more polarized, as like the whole gray area will start to separate, and there'll be people, you'll have to pick which way are you going to go, like the believers or the disbelievers, right? And may Allah Ta'ala protect us, may Allah Ta'ala help us, and be amongst us and our children and our coming generations until the day of judgment. May Allah Ta'ala not put those tests on us which we don't have an ability to bear. We know Allah knows how weak we are, and what we have strength for, and we do what we don't have strength for. And may Allah Ta'ala protect all of us, and show us the truth as the truth, and give us the ability to follow it, and show us the falsehood as false, and give us the ability to reject it and not be influenced by it, by any false propaganda, or just because some lies are being said again and again and again and again, they don't become the truth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala show us the truth. And so what He's telling us is that what we are learning here is that communities or groups of people, they when they are when they go when they are when they face punishments in this world, those punishments, it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For the disbelievers, the punishments, the trials and struggles that come to them in this world, what happens? Why is it different from any struggles that a believer would be facing? For a disbeliever, any punishment that they face in this world will not become a kafara for them, will not become a means of forgiveness for them in the next world. Whereas for believers, any trouble that they face here will become a kafara, a means of forgiveness for them in the next world, right? And so those people, when difficulties come in this life, and despite those difficulties, when challenges come, whether it's a personal level, health issue, financial issue, career issue, or relationship issues, or like any troubles come to us individually or socially or politically, or any challenges that come to us, but despite those challenges coming to us, we don't learn the lesson, and we don't turn towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then because those even the trials of our life have a potential of turning us towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Many people do turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when they have going through hard time and everything. Then they start looking for the truth. Then so they start looking. They have these challenges, and they start looking for the truth and getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the disbelievers, they don't, like, and then their punishment in the akhirah will be even more increased, because you had a chance, you were starting to see, there were things were starting to fall all around you, and then you could see very clearly that the only thing to hold on to is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and yet you did not make the effort. Things were made clear to you, and you still did not make that effort, right? So we can think of it like, for example, the judge sentences somebody to the prison for 1 year, and they say, okay, you're getting, because of the mischief you have done, or the crime you have done, you're going to the jail for 1 year, you're going to the prison for 1 year. But if you do mischief there, if you are continue your bad behavior even in the jail, then your punishment will be increased to 2 years, right? So what's happening with those who disbelieve is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that their punishment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them a severe punishment in this world. And because they're not taking lessons from it, also they will also have a punishment in the hereafter, and they will have no helpers in the hereafter. Nobody, even if they knew some believers in this world, even if they had family members who were believers, Nobody will be there to help them. Why? Because what's the condition to be helped on the day of judgment? What is the condition to have help and to have support on the day of judgment, to be saved on the day of judgment, to have the mercy of the day of judgment? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the next ayah that وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, that the condition is as for those who believe. Believe meaning the right belief. Right belief, and in the context of Isa alayhi salam, to have the right belief that consider him a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no less than a prophet. Don't defame him, don't say negative about him, don't make jokes about him. And astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, we see Christians making jokes about Isa alayhi salam, astaghfirullah, may Allah. And as Muslims, we need to be offended about that. He is our Rasul. Before all the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we believe in all the prophets. At the end of Surah Baqarah, we learned that we believe in all the prophets, right? We don't differentiate between them. Yes, their levels are different. Yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given a bit more, like a different kind of level to different prophets, but they're all prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we love all of them and we respect all of them. So even if we are sitting with a Christian person who's making a joke about Isa alayhi salam, we should not like it. We should feel disturbed by it. We should either, and but depending on the wisdom of the situation, because sometimes we know to some people, when they are in that zone, in that mode, if they're joking about something, if you comment on it, they will joke even more, or they will like start to talk back, or they will. So when we know the people has that kind of personality, then don't, they just go away from there or change the topic or something, right? Because you have, but we are not, because Isa alayhi salam has an honor, has a respect. He's much better than any of us. He is a prophet of Allah, and there is a kind of respect that we owe to him. There's a kind of love. There's a kind of, there's a kind of allegiance that we owe to him because Allah chose him and as a prophet, and he's going to come back and be our leader as well. Yeah, right. And after he comes back, now this time he will not be coming as a Rasul. This time he'll be coming back as a leader of the Muslims. He will be our leader, right? We will be with him, and so we are not supposed to, or we have to respect and honor him the way he deserves to be honored. At the same time, what the right belief demands from us is that no more than that either, right? He was a prophet and a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And he is a prophet, right? So we don't give him a status more than a prophet, right? Just, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to explain to us in the ayah number 59 later on, that we will learn that how his case is like Adam alayhi salam, right? Adam alayhi salam was born without a father and a mother. Isa alayhi salam was born without a father, right? So their cases, and we talk a lot more about their similarities and things like that. But for now, we know that we should have the right belief, right? As opposed to the fate of disbelievers, that they will get punishment. The believers, what is the fate of believers? The Muslims and the people the people at the time of Isa alayhi salam and throughout the centuries of, like, there have been people in the Christian tradition who have had right beliefs, although it's not advertised or talked about so much. But there have been people who have had the right belief, who were the true followers of the teachings of Isa alayhi salam, and those people are recorded as believers. They will be recorded as believers, right? And in this life, we know that Christians, with the belief that they have now about the divinity of Astaghfirullah, Isa alayhi salam, or about Trinity, or about these things, yes, they will get dominance over the Jews in this world, but in the afterlife, the rewards of afterlife are dependent or on two conditions. There are two conditions to get the reward, and Allah will give full reward, but there has to be two conditions. One, you have to believe, you have to have the right belief, and second, you have to do good deeds. You have to not just believe, okay, I believe in my heart. I believe in Allah in my heart, but then I don't pray. I don't give zakat. I don't do, but my heart is good. No, no, no. And Islam says no. In wal asr, innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. That yes, you believe, but then you have to also follow it up with the righteous deeds. There's rituals to be followed. There's things to be done. There are good deeds to be done. You can't say I believe and then be nasty to every person you meet. You can't be oppressing people. You can't be cheating people. You can't be doing that, because that's not amal saleh. That's not a righteous deed. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would want both. It's not one or the other. You have to have both. Right? We need right beliefs, and we also need to do good deeds. We need to do righteous deeds, and righteous deeds are not just good deeds. They're righteous. They're those which are recognized by Allah SWT. And what are righteous deeds? Righteous deeds are those which are done for the sake of Allah SWT. They're good, and they're on the way of the Prophet ﷺ, the way the Prophet ﷺ taught us. Those are the salih deeds, right? Such people who do such deeds, they will have full reward. And interestingly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the same word, فَيُوَفِّيهِمْ, right? So just like tuwafi was used for taking Isa alayhi salam, lifting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lifted Isa alayhi salam completely. He uses the same word here to kind of those people who take their time to study the Quran, they will see the reference. Like even the word play, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us that this does not mean, some people were stuck for the word tuwafi from ayah number 55 on the meaning of death, that wafa, it's they're corrected, that it clarifies that here it means completely, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives their reward completely. Similarly, he lifted Isa alayhi salam completely, body and soul. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, Wallahu la yuhibbul zalimin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like the transgressors. Generally speaking, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like wrongdoers. He does not like transgressors at all. Specifically speaking, in this context, we are speaking about the transgressors who were trying to kill Isa alayhi salam, the people of that time who were conspiring and trying to kill Isa alayhi salam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like those people who were trying to, who were zalimeen, who were doing so much dhulm. It also contains a hint that if those who profess belief in Isa alayhi salam, but they relapse into shirk, right, and hearsay, whatever they hear, and um, like that's a kind of shirk, because you're not. What did Isa alayhi salam come with? What did Jesus come with? He came with the message. The first words he spoke was Inni Abdullah. Indeed, I'm the servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm the slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So when we follow Isa alayhi salam, when we love and follow Isa, when we love and follow Jesus, we love his message. We love what he came with. We follow what he came with, that there is no God except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At the same time, people who say they're following Jesus, but they go into shirk, they fall into shirk, they raise him himself on the level of divinity, astaghfirullah, and they fall into all these stories that have been built around, and things that have been said, they would not escape the punishment in the hereafter as well, just because they love Isa alayhi salam. That will not save them from the punishment, because you need to have right beliefs, and you need to have righteous deeds, and Allah does not like the wrongdoers, because that is a wrongdoing. Why? How is it a wrongdoing? What is dhulm? Dhulm means to give somebody's right, to snatch somebody's right, which was their right, and give it to somebody else. Right. So for example, some things belong, for a small child, it could be they were sitting in a classroom and another child came and snatched their pencil away, snatched their eraser away, and they're not giving it back. Now that's a dhulm. That's a small dhulm, right? A bigger dhulm could be like we know in many places in the world, some people's land is snatched away, like they're made to expel from their homes, and their home or their property is confiscated in some false thing, and somebody else just takes over their property, and then that's a dhulm, right? So, and but what is the biggest dhulm? The right to be worshipped belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The right to be worshipped belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And to take that right and to give that right to somebody else is the biggest dhulm. It was a dhulm. Those who tried to kill Isa alayhi salam was a big dhulm. That was a dhulm, because Isa alayhi salam had a right to live. He had not committed any crime, astaghfirullah. He had no right, nobody had the right to kill him, like, or to, or to do this. That was a dhulm they were doing. Similarly, those who make him a partner in divinity, they are also doing dhulm. Right? And there's so many kinds of dhulm in this world. If we pay attention, may Allah Ta'ala protect us from both being a dhalim, being doing zulm, and also from being madloom, from being zulm being done upon us. Right? And what we are learning is believers are dear to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of their belief. And the beloved ones, they because they're beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the beloved ones are always treated in such a manner that when believers are stuck by suffering here in this world, their sins are forgiven because of it. The punishment of the hereafter is lightened or warded off because of it, or their status, like the status might be raised in the hereafter. And even in this world, when we are going through a trouble, if we believe that that trouble makes us make dua more, makes us like closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more, makes us rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more, because we start to understand that nothing else can take care of us like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can. So our belief in Allah goes, our tawakkul increases with every challenge that we face and everything. So the challenges or the struggles that believer face, they are rewarded for it. We get the rewarded in full. However, for disbelievers, that is not the case because they're detested because of their disbelief. And those who are detested, they do not receive this kind of treatment that the believers receive. Right? May Allah Ta'ala make us of the believers. Ameen. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, ذَلِكَ نَتْلُوهُ عَلَيْكَ مِنَ الْآيَاتِ وَالذِّكْرِ الْحَكِيمِ. That this is what we recite to you, O Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These are the ayat of the Quran that we recite to you, right? And so after telling all the story in the previous ayat, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us something more, but now he's addressing the Prophet, and by extension all of us. That all these stories, after all these stories, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that this we recite to you of the verses and the message that is full of wisdom, right? So like about all these things about which people have made up all these stories and everything, through the wahi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us the truth. And to be able to understand the truth, to be able to know the truth is such a big blessing that we should thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it. We should say Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed us to to touch the Quran, to see the Quran, to read the Quran, to listen to the Quran, to understand the Quran, that we are starting to understand these things. These realities are being opened to us. We did not know about this. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not know about this, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed it through wahi. A lot of truths were lost over the generations because the people who would stick to the truth, a lot of them were killed. A lot of the things were confiscated, right? Like we know all these things had happened. People had made all these things up. What were the different kind of things that were made? Like after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had raised Isa alayhi salam to the heavens, his followers were divided into different sects. Slowly and slowly there were different sects that were starting to make. And what were the different groups that came up over the period of history that we know? There was one group who believed, as the righteous belief was, that Isa alayhi salam is the servant of and messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There was another group who believed that Isa alayhi salam started believing that Isa alayhi salam is the son of Allah, astaghfirullah, that he's the biological son of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. The third group of people started believing that Isa alayhi salam is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself, and he's put himself into the form of, so God himself came down in the form of Isa alayhi salam, astaghfirullah, and and then whatever happened. And another group started believing in the Trinity, because when they started going to different groups of people and there were the concept of three gods and everything, and to make it more appealing to those groups of people, they started developing this concept of Trinity and everything. And we learned that the Christians remained like this until the third century, where when a Greek king called Constantine, he became a Christian, but he became a Christian for the sake of destroying Christianity. And then like he changed the religion of Isa alayhi salam by, if we just go over the history, we'll see that he changed the religion of Isa alayhi salam by adding to it and by deleting to it. He established the rituals of Christianities and so-called great trust, and which he allowed people to eat the meat of the swine. Isa alayhi salam did not allow people, like it was haram to eat the flesh of the swine, of the pig, right? Like of so, but he allowed that. He changed the direction of the prayer. He built churches, and he added like 10 days of the fast as a compensation for a sin that he committed, as he claimed, right? So he changed the religion of Isa Islam, all the things. And then over a period of time, we know that like from a religion which is one of the main figures of that is Maryam salam alayha, who was the picture of modesty, who was like who was the epitome of modesty. Even the Quran calls her like she was the her characteristic was she was an extremely modest lady, mashallah tabarakallah. And then and then the same followers, or the people who claim to follow her and even raise her to the level of divinity, are okay with having relationships other than marriage, with okay with having children beyond marriages, and are okay with everything. And may Allah Ta'ala forgive all of us for our mistakes that we have done in the past that we didn't know about. But when we know better, we do better. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us for everything. And such a mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that when we come to Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala erases all of our sins before Islam. When we accept Islam, anything that any of us might have been engaged in, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala erases all the sins and He keeps all of our good deeds, right? So and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the Prophet sallallahu, and by extension us, that this is not just a story for the sake of it, or this for the sake of enjoyment, or for the sake of doing plays about Isa alayhi salam and having children dress up and it's not just for that sake, right? This is not just a story for that sake. Its reality has been disclosed through the ayat of the Quran, right? These things are that you're learning about, they're full of wisdom. This is the true account about Isa alayhi salam, unlike the popular Christian version of today. It's not a fabrication, it's not a distortion of his life and his mission. Isa alayhi salam he came to this world with a mission. He had a life, he lived a life, he went through all these challenges, and he stuck to his mission. And we don't, like, in the name of following him, we don't fabricate and distort his life and his mission. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has explained the truth to us, and He has clarified the true position, so as to, so this opens further avenues for us to appreciate the truth, to follow the guidance, and to benefit from divine wisdom. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us good news and warnings, to understand that. Also, this also means that truth is now clear. Like at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, now that the wahi is coming down, the truth of, even to the people of that time, at the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, now the truth has come forward. If you did not know, if you were deceived by something else before, if your families, or like in your societies, in your cultures, in your media, you had some of the things, now you know the truth. And once you know the truth, there is no more excuse for persisting in the wrong ways, right? And if you still persist, if you understand the truth, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has opened the truth for you and you understand the truth, and even after understanding the truth, you don't want to let go of the power, you don't want to let go of the money, you don't want to let go of the recognition that people have, because just because you keep saying, if you support any lie, you get this, you get elevated to certain power, you get, like, people will give you praise you more, give you more, and everything. But once you understand the truth, you don't, you keep persisting in the wrong ways, then you will be held accountable for it. There is wisdom in telling you us all of this. May Allah Ta'ala make us of those people who take the wisdom, who, first of all, may Allah Ta'ala open the Quran in our hearts. May Allah Ta'ala keep the Quran in our hearts and our minds and our lives till the last breath of our lives. Like, may Allah Ta'ala keep us, make us the companions of the Quran. May Allah Ta'ala help us appreciate the miracle that the Quran is, that His word is, to give these stories, to tell about the previous prophets, to tell about Isa alayhi salam, things that even people who claim to be the followers of Isa alayhi salam had lost over the centuries, over the years. They had lost them. They had lost the details, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects the honors of His believers, protects the honors of His prophets, and corrects the wrong beliefs that people have had. And may Allah ta'ala make us of those people who understand the truth, who adhere to the Quran, who become the, may Allah Ta'ala write us as the people of the Quran, and through the Quran let us learn the truth, understand the truth, accept the truth, live by the truth. May Allah Ta'ala, just like He united us as sisters in Islam, may Allah Ta'ala reunite us one day as sisters in Islam on the day of judgment, when there will be no shade except His. And then may Allah Ta'ala reunite us in Jannatul Firdaus, literally under His arsh, where the roof would be His arsh, and from where we can see Him, we can talk to Him. And may Allah Ta'ala make us of those people to whom it is said, enter enter this Jannah in peace. And may Allah Ta'ala make us those who join with each other in truth. May Allah Ta'ala protect us from all the fitnas of this world in today's day and time. And may Allah Ta'ala protect us from the fitna of the Dajjal. May Allah Ta'ala protect us and each of our child in our coming generations, our children, their children, and their children, and their children, and their children, and their children, until the day of judgment. May Allah Ta'ala protect all of our coming generations from all the fitna. May Allah Ta'ala keep us firm. May Allah Ta'ala help us live by the Shahada and take us on the Shahada, and not waver from it. Keep us on the straight path. I mean, and may Allah Ta'ala accept from us any goodness that comes from today or any other talk for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, because He's the owner of all khair. Any mistakes are mine, because I'm a human being open to mistakes. May Allah Ta'ala still accept from us. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم آمين يا أرحم الراحمين سبحانك اللهم أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك 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 ونتوب إليك.